to a new episode of the Rebel Radio Podcast, episode 198. Wow, yes. We're almost at 200. This is Mark.
This is Matt.
What is up, Matt?
Wow.
How are you, buddy?
I am good. Just enjoying this image of Chuck Norris behind me. Because
it's weird.
The eyes of the Ranger are upon me.
He's pointing at you, though. It doesn't freak you out?
There is.
He's like...
He's giving me the finger.
He's like, you better clean up the litter in Texas, or I will shoot you, or something.
That's right. Don't mess with Texas. Something like that. I mean, or you'll get roundhouse kicked.
Yes, he uses the roundhouse a few times in this movie we're going to talk about today. And,
he does.
So it should be interesting to talk about this film. But yeah, man, it's another week of a COVID-19 world that we now live in. So we're still social distancing and doing the podcast online. And but I can guarantee, without probably a matter of fact, that in 2 weeks for episode 200, we're going to do it in person. Even if we have to sit 6 feet apart in the room here, we're going to do it. Because it's going to be a big episode, and we're going to reminisce on 200 episodes. We're going to look back on the journey that began in 2014 till now to get us to that point. We're going to play some games in the 200th episode too and have some fun. It's going to be pretty fucking epic. It's, of course, going to be The Empire Strikes Back. That's no secret, as we released a little teaser picture this week on our social media. But it should be very exciting to talk. Oh, excuse me, I almost burped on the show there. To talk and look back on 200 episodes of the show. That is only possible because people listen to it, and we appreciate that. And we started a Patreon this year. We appreciate those guys, which we know we owe you because we fucked up April. Some of that's on me, but we are going to come back strong. May and June, we're going to have some stuff coming for you, which I will have to talk to you a little bit about that after show, Matt. But we've got to come back strong for our Patreons in April, so we don't want to forget them. But
100%.
But we're gonna thank you more here in a couple weeks for when we hit episode 200 and talk that. And Long is not on the show tonight, but he will be back the next 2 weeks. He's going to talk the movie next week with us, and then he'll be around for the 200th episode, of course, in a couple of weeks. And after that, who knows? You're expecting, well, your wife's expecting baby number 4, so you might take a week off or something. But we'll figure it all out. I'll have Long step in your shoes for a week or two if we have to. So
there we go.
It's all good. It's all good in the hood.
Mm-hmm.
Do the kid? They still say that? Yeah, I'm getting out of touch with cool sayings.
I think they do.
Yeah.
Sure. There's just watch TikTok, I guess, and you can get up to speed on slang.
No TikTok for me. I've decided that there comes a point that I am too old for Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. All good. I don't need more social media. That's enough. And Snapchat's apparently only for pornography anyway, so
apparently.
I don't know. So, but yeah, I don't know. Or do I know? Or maybe I don't know.
Who knows?
But welcome. Welcome anybody who's watching on Facebook Live. I'm sort of paying attention to who's on. Looks like Adrian is on. Welcome, Adrian, for checking it out. I don't know if he dropped off or not. This thing, it acts wonky. Sometimes you can tell people are on, and sometimes you can't, Like, it'll say only 4 people are watching, but then we'll have like 75 views. So I don't know how it works exactly. But
yeah, it depends on the watch party and the live video. They could watch either one. So between the two,
it's just a little extra for people to check out and watch our ugly mugs as we discuss, or we bring you the podcast this week, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah. But other than that, man, all's good. It's like I said, we continue on in this post-COVID-19 world. There was some news out of California today that there's a company that might have a antibody that can keep it at bay for 2 months at a time, and it could be an ongoing treatment where we might all have to be on medicine for a while to fight this thing off until they come out with a vaccine or a true cure. But hey, if that's what it takes, taking medicine every couple of months, and fuck it, whatever, we'll see what happens. So I guess we're supposed to meet with FDA and talk a little bit more about it next week, but their stock went soaring today because of it. I might have made like $10 off of them. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see if it's a real deal or not. But it feels like we need some good news out of all this mess that's going on since late February, early March now, really, here in the U.S. anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But we're not here to bring you down. We are here to lift you up and talk movies and comic books and geek culture and everything. And as usual, we always start the show with a download this, where we tell you what we've watched, streamed, checked out this week, and missed our quarantine selves as we stay at home and watch a lot of shit. Matt, what have you checked out, man?
Well, on Vudu, they had some cool free movies. Roadhouse is, of course, always a favorite of mine, and Roadhouse was on there. So I went ahead and watched Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze, and why can't I think of this man's name? You know, the guy from Ghost Rider, Big Lebowski narrator.
Oh,
Dodge Rail.
Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott. There we go. I had his face in my mind, but I couldn't spit out his name. I feel like that movie still is like good 80s cheese. And then they had the $5 sale, which we both took advantage of. And I bought Speed, and I bought Demolition Man. Watched both of those this week. So watched John Spartan, and it's funny. I mean, it's some 90s cheese in there.
I don't know. See, I didn't really like Demolition Man that much when I first saw it, so I can't imagine I'd really like it that much now. I know it has kind of a cult following, but I just never really thought it was that good of a movie. That was okay, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some good parts of it. Does it make the movie overall, great? No, it's not a great movie. I don't even know if it's a good movie. It's just one of those movies that, like you said, it has a niche following, and it has good enough elements to where you may spend that $5 and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I do want Demolition Man in my back pocket for one of those rainy days, just to see, them mention the Arnold Schwarzenegger library. Having Taco Bell be a formal restaurant, Dennis Leary and the Rat Burger kind of thing, but yeah, I watched that, and been watching a lot of Onward. My youngest, now my youngest, he won't be my youngest in a month, but he's been watching Onward all the time. Loves Onward, can't get enough of watching it. So I've watched that probably like 10 times this week, in addition to those movies. And that's about it for me. Yeah, I've been kind of watching old stuff too. It's like, there's a lot of new stuff out there you can watch, but sometimes it's like nice to watch the classics. Yeah, I took advantage of Voodoo's $5 sale and picked up Speed digitally. And I watched it. Man, the movie holds up pretty well, I think, for a 90s action film. I wish the sound mix was better on the Vudu copy. It's a little weak, but Keanu and Sandra Bullock are really good in that movie, and I think it's pretty good. Dennis Hopper is always a pleasure to see on screen, and it kind of made me miss him watching the movie, because I always think Dennis Hopper was such a good actor. And but I think they should make a true sequel to Speed. I know legacy sequels are like a thing now, where you make a sequel to something that came out 20 years ago, and I'd love to see a true Speed sequel, not that Jason Patrick on a boat shit, whatever the fuck that was. I'd like to see a true Speed sequel where Keanu Reeves is kind of an older cop, maybe a little more experience, and he's maybe married to Annie after all these years, and something happens, and I don't know what the fuck they would do with it, but why not? Do a Speed 2, a true Speed 2. And I rewatched. I wanted to watch Avatar in 4K on Disney Plus, and that movie. Sometimes people want to say it's a Dances with Wolves ripoff or whatever, but man, it's I think it's really good. I don't know if it's James Cameron's best. You can argue that The Abyss or Terminator 2 or Titanic's his best film, but I still think James Cameron. Let's just face it, nothing he does is bad. And it's kind of making me look forward to the sequel, man. I really enjoyed watching Avatar again, and it looks really fucking good in 4K on Disney Plus. So it's worth watching it if you haven't seen it. If you have Disney Plus, you have 4K TV. Man, Avatar is quite a treat. I think in 4K, it's worth watching. And it's a good movie. I didn't realize some of the dialogue is a little cheesier than I remember being. I was like, man, was Avatar this cheesy? But I think it's supposed to be kind of a
a simplistic sci-fi movie that people read too much in. But James Cameron knows how to make movies. There's no doubt. And of course, Avatar 2 is filming right now. I guess they're filming 2 and 3 back to back. I don't know. We'll see. But then I also watched just before we started the podcast, I went ahead and purchased Scoob for the kids. It's video in theater, at home. It was going to be out in theaters, but COVID-19 caused Scoob to not happen, so it got released digitally, and I had to buy it for my daughter who loves Scooby-Doo, and it's actually really good. It's not the Scooby-Doo you think. It's not typical Mystery Inc. chasing ghosts. It's kind of a Hanna-Barbera movie. There's a lot of Hanna-Barbera characters that pop up in this. Captain Caveman pops up in it. Dino Mutt. There's been talk about they want to create a cinematic animated universe with Hanna-Barbera characters, and they kind of start that in this film. I was sitting there watching this. The kids had no idea who these characters were, but us guys that grew up watching that stuff, I'm like, oh, that's what's his name.
The Pussycats and
they didn't appear, but there's a lot. If you watch the credits afterwards, there's a lot of stuff in the credits that are nods to other Hanna-Barbera characters. I love Space Ghost. I would love to see Hanna-Barbera bring back Space Ghost in a movie or something. Yeah. So it's a good start. Scoob is really enjoyable. It's $25 to buy it on Vudu, but if you bought it, if you went to the movies, if this thing came out in theaters, I took all the kids, I was going to spend that, if not more, between drinks and candy. So it was well worth it to own it at home. I kind of, I'm leaning a little bit more towards, I kind of like this owning a movie at home thing. There's still certain movies like Star Wars and things like that you want to go see on the big screen. But, I'm not totally against the idea of just not having to go anywhere. I can buy a brand new movie at home. I'm kind of okay with that. If that's the way the world. No, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to sneak your dollar store candy in, and you don't have to, sneak alcohol in. You can have a beer on your couch while you watch Invisible Man or The Way Back.
I want to see that. But I'll wait till it goes $5.99 rental. Invisible Man. But it's definitely there's something to it. Like, I'm a theater guy. I've always enjoyed going to the movies, but now it's like the convenience of streaming and having nice televisions at home. It's almost like it's worth it to be at home and watch the films. But then maybe 2 or 3 times a year, maybe you venture out to see something on the big screen. Even the Marvel movies, like. Yeah, you have like Endgame and stuff that are nice to see on the big screen, but like honestly, Black Widow, I wouldn't have cared if I saw that on the big screen or if I saw it at home. That wouldn't bother me, So it just depends on the film, I guess. So we'll see how this world continues to change as we move forward in the next few months with the COVID-19 crisis and things like that. So, but Scoob was pretty good. I recommend it if you got kids home. It's a very enjoyable movie. I actually enjoyed it a lot myself. I liked it. So
I thought about renting that today, but I realized it was available for theater at home too late. I was like, I can't have the kids stay up till 10 o'clock watching.
Yeah, it's only like an hour. It's only like an hour and a half long, And you can always borrow my Vudu account and watch it too. You know that since I borrow yours.
Appreciate that.
It's good stuff. I might have some adult movies on there. No, not really. No, nothing like that. But yeah, so definitely check that out. And I'm thinking that's all I really watched this week: Speed, Avatar, and Scoob. And I did buy Ghostbusters Remastered because PlayStation finally had it on sale for like $10. Okay, well, let me rephrase that. I try to play it, and my wonderful 5-year-old likes to take it over and says, "I got this, Dad." So I end up watching him play it. But he's a smart kid, so it's all good in the hood. But yeah. I said that twice in one show. All good in the hood.
Good in the hood, I guess.
I must be living in the hood.
It's going to be your new catchphrase.
Yep, probably so. But yeah, that's it for Download This. So let's get into today's show then. We're already into today's show. Today's feature film for the episode. And so, we've Chuck Norris has become a bit of a meme over the years, a bit of an inside joke with people. And there was a time where Chuck was did a lot of movies in the late 70s and 80s, and none of them really that great. Mostly there were kind of B movies, but he kind of had a following even then. His movies did okay at the box office, nothing gangbusters, but nothing terrible either. And He did a lot of stuff for Canon Films, which we had an episode a while back before we rebooted the show where we talked a lot about Canon Films. And there's a documentary on Netflix called Electric Boogaloo, the story of Canon Films. It is well worth your time to watch, where it talks about how Canon went to make these lower budget action and schlock films in the 80s. And
Firewalker.
Right. And they were quite successful. Yeah, Superman 4. They were quite successful with their films. And the film we're talking today came out of that Canon film era when they were like, basically, hey, we can't get Bruce Lee to do a movie because, well, at this point he already passed away, but we can get Chuck Norris. We get like the next best thing. And that was how Canon Films used to think about their movies. Like, if we can't get Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger to do a movie, let's go get the guy we can get. And in this case, it was Chuck Norris, and that was Canon Films' way of thinking. And it was highly successful. And of course, the movie today we're talking about is 1986's The Delta Force. And oh boy, when I watched this again this week, it'd been a few years since I've seen it. I remember liking this a hell of a lot more when I was a kid. I'm not going to hate on the movie because that's too easy. Because this movie was definitely made in a time in which movies were just made differently. But to summarize this film, I'll summarize this week, Matt.
Go for it. You
summarized last week. Basically, at a special forces unit called the Delta Force is called in to stop terrorists that have hijacked a plane. And they want the plot's a little muddled. Like, they wanted some of their people let out of jail, right? Essentially.
Yeah,
I was only half.
I'm let out of jail.
Yeah,
they only touch on what they want for a little bit. So
right, for like a brief second. So I'm sitting there watching them, like, okay, wait, why are the terrorists doing all this? So basically, they send the Delta Force in to stop the terrorists. It's that simple. I mean, it's a Die Hard plot in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
and the movie stars Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin in his final role before he passed away. And rewatching this movie this week, it's like. It's very 1980s. It's very, you can tell it's shot in a lot of single takes. The actors barely have time to even get their lines out. It feels like they're moving to the next scene. It's not badly shot. In fact, the first hour of this movie is pretty good.
I'll say the first half. Well, it's 2 hours, right? It's like 2:09. And the first hour.
Not only is the first hour pretty good, it's also hardly any Chuck Norris in the first hour of the movie. I'm sitting there going, man, this is a Chuck Norris film, and he literally appears in the first eight or so minutes, and he doesn't show back up till almost an hour into the film. It's really bizarre. It's like, wait a minute, where did Chuck go in this movie? But yet he's a top-billed actor. It's more of a Lee Marvin movie in the first half of the film, and it's a Chuck Norris movie in the second half, which I thought was like, yeah, and no offense.
Side B.
Yes, and no offense to Lee Marvin, because he's actually really great in this movie. It's like Lee Marvin really believes in the cheesiness of this film, and he's really putting his all into it, and he actually puts on a good performance. I think, and maybe it's not even a good performance as so much as all the other actors in it are really bad. Even Chuck.
Performance.
Yeah, Chuck's not even that good in this. You can tell that Chuck is simply reading his lines, going through the motions. You can tell it's funny because, and I know I'm talking a lot here. I want you to get your voices in too, but like, it felt like this is a military film and they're the Delta Force, but all their outfits look like they went and bought them at the local thrift store, and they all have the same outfits. They all have the same exact fucking wooden gun that looks the same for everyone, and they're really small. The guns are like, it looks like they're holding a handgun with two hands. It's ridiculous. That's just some of my initial thoughts. What are some of your initial thoughts?
Man, I think that this movie sold me as soon as Chuck Norris ripped open the mattress, saw the terrorist underneath, shot him, and said, "Sleep tight,"
Yes.
I was
There's some one-liners in this.
We've got a movie. I mean, like you said, there's some good aspects to this movie. The terrorists actually have like a heart. I mean, there's like a pregnant woman, and they sit the pregnant woman down. And I actually think that was a smart move by Canon, because they kind of have a heavy hand with these terrorists, and which they used this plot based off of a 1973
hijacking or something
situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, that stewardess was based off of a real woman who had a larger role in that situation. And but yeah, she was German, and they were collecting Jews. They did shoot a Navy pilot and threw him off the plane. That did happen, or a Navy diver. Sorry. So, and they did hold a gun to the pilot's head while he gave a report on what was happening to the news. So
that was another thing. Like, this movie, there's parts of it where it borderlines kind of a B movie sense to it, but then it gets really serious and really violent. Like, beating the hell out of a guy, throwing a guy out of an airplane, dead point shooting a guy in the chest underneath the mattress, like you said. And it kind of goes back and forth, like, are we trying to be a cheesy kind of action exploitation film, or are we trying to be a really dark, violent film, And that's how I felt when I was watching it. The movie is almost like 3 or 4 different places at one time sometimes. And it's also a part martial arts films because of Chuck Norris.
Yeah, there is some martial arts in there. There's a good, I wouldn't say car chase, there's a good van chase scene in there where Chuck Norris is shooting through the windshield, trying to shoot from the side of the van. I mean, it's but like you said, the movie is kind of choppy. They get, all of a sudden they get sent to link
Beirut.
up with after
they go to Beirut first, and they miss the terrorists in Beirut, right?
Yeah, and they still have the men that were captured,
right?
So
they're
not
like
the women and children.
That was what was weird. They're like, we're going to send you to Israel. And they're like, why Israel? And we're like, well, we're pretty sure they went there. And it's like, how do you know this? We just know. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And then there's this bizarre, like, mini training scene that, like, came out of nowhere, training them how to raid an airplane. Then the scene is over. Then they're in Israel. It's like, wait, what? It's like, it's almost like there could have been 30 more minutes of this movie explaining that part. But like, okay, we're already running long, so let's move to the next scene. It was weird. I was like, wait a minute. What was the point in the training sequence if all of a sudden going to be in Israel? And then, this is almost a Patreon episode. In our Patreons, we do movies that are kind of cheesy. They get to Israel, and they have the Delta Force set up to invade and stop the bad guys and all that, right? And then there's only basically they snipe half of them. Chuck goes off to do his own thing where he's going after the main bad guy, and he suddenly has this motorcycle with rocket launchers and all that shit that comes out of fucking nowhere. And they raid the camp, they beat all the bad guys. It's basically Lee Marvin, another guy, and all the rest of the Delta Force do absolutely nothing except sit back and wait.
Yeah.
But part of that is because it seems like the Delta Force, the previous scene when they were in Beirut or Israel, I might even have the cities mixed up, but you know what I mean. The previous scene before the terrorists get away, there's a huge action sequence in the middle of this film when Chuck Norris comes back in the movie, and it feels like they use their whole budget up right there with all the other actors, so that when you got to the ending scene, you couldn't have the Delta Force raid. You can only have 2 guys raid and Chuck do his thing on the bike. It's almost like, okay, we spent all our money, we can't do this later in the film.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird. And then the poster for the film shows Chuck on the bike with the Delta Force raiding behind him. But yet they do no fucking raiding at the end of the movie. They just sort of sit behind the trees.
It's Chuck Norris versus everyone. He's facing tanks. He's facing Humvees and Jeeps with 50 caliber machine guns. and what one of the other terrorists that was trying to convince his brother or whoever hijacked the plane to just let the hostages go and do things another way. And then he's like, okay, you do your way. He's trying to convince Chuck Norris to stop his raid and to strike a deal. He's like, American, let's talk. And he's like, here's how we're going to talk. And he just, unloads on the radio and blows it up. Yeah. And then the guy's confused on the other lines, like, well, I thought we were going to talk. It sounds like gunfire. But yeah, there's some good and bad moments here. I think that, obviously this movie was mildly successful because it spawned 2 sequels.
Yeah.
One of them being Chuck Norris's son on that third sequel, Mike Norris.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yep. Starring Chuck Norris's son. Who knew that he had a son? It's kind of like when you find out Joe Montana had a son, and you're like, why didn't I know Joe Montana had a son? Well, he didn't exactly have the same facade as his father, and just wasn't as successful, and that's why he's just very limited in in his exposure.
No, you're right. It was semi-successful. It spawned a sequel. It got a lot of television play. I remember seeing this back in the day on TV. I don't remember being that violent, but being on television, it was probably edited, or who knows, or I just didn't think nothing of it back then. But I remember liking the movie, and then when I was a kid, and it's one of those you watch older, and you're like, yeah, this isn't as good. But let's talk about the theme song. My God, does this get played? How many times does it get played in the movie? You swear there's a guy in the editing room on the fucking when they edit this film together. There is no composer. They're like, we have this theme song. We're just going to hit the button at certain times of the movie and play it. You're playing it in the background there, but it's just like. It's not a bad theme song. Don't get me wrong. It's kind of adventurous and kind of excited. It kind of fits the motif of this movie. But good Lord, it just keeps going on and on over and over again. Right? Yeah.
I compare them playing this thing to the Star Wars Cantina song band on repeat. And they're already repeating like 50 times. And then, it's like, okay, they fought this guy. And then they're going to travel to this location to take on this part of that terrorist army, and let's play it again, and then stop it, and then play it again. And I had that song stuck in my head as soon as I watched that movie.
Yes,
but, very very 80s. Well, I mean, this is Rocky III running on the beach with short shorts and hugging each other in the water. 80s. Right. This is it. This is the jewel of the 80s.
Yeah, and what's funny is though we're kind of making fun of it and sound like it's terrible, and it's not terrible. It's a watchable movie, but you have to put yourself in that place. You have to remember when this was made. You have to remember the studio that produced this. They were known for these types of films, but it's not necessarily a bad movie. I've seen much worse. It's an enjoyable film. It's a fun little movie. It's a little long. It could be cut a little short. Because there is a period at the beginning of the film for like 20, 25 minutes where nothing really happens. They could cut some things out. They could have made this a little tighter. Chuck it's fun to see Chuck do his thing. He kicks some ass and takes no names in this. And, Chuck was never known for his acting. Let's face it. He was hired as a martial artist. They were trying to cash in on the Bruce Lee craze, and that's why he did a couple of films with Bruce Lee before Bruce passed. And he was the white guy Bruce Lee, and they were trying to cash in on that. I mean, let's just be honest. That's what it was. And nothing wrong with that. And Chuck made a career out of it. He made some decent, like, little cheesy action films, and he got his name out there, which led to Walker, Texas Ranger, and other successes for him. And deservingly so, because, Chuck is one of the good guys out there in the world. He's a super nice guy, does a lot of stuff for children and charities and things like that. So you know what? So what if he made some bad action films in the 80s? He still had fun doing it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think his best two things that he ever did was, if you want to call Way of the Dragon a Chuck Norris film.
But people don't people remember Bruce Lee for that. They don't remember,
Yeah, but Lone Wolf McQuade was his most famous film and most successful film as far as like dollars and gross profit, and that movie did really well.
Yeah. And Missing in Action did pretty good for him. And the Delta Force, I think the Delta Force did okay, but it found more success on home video and on television than it did in theaters. But like I said, did well enough.
Definitely big television success.
Oh yeah, yeah, because he did. I mean, Walker Texas Ranger was a very big show when it came out, to the point that I think there's still talks of a remake in the works of them redoing Walker Texas Ranger. Not that we need that, but it could happen.
Yeah. And
but the Delta Force, it's on Amazon Prime if you're interested in watching it. So check it out if you've never seen it. If you enjoy just kind of fun action movies, watch this. If I had to rate this, I mean, I'm not going to be kind to it and say it's a B. It's probably a C plus. It's not the greatest film ever, but it's definitely a watchable film. It's better than, like, what have we done on our Patreon? Street Fighter the movie. It's way better than that. It's better than It's better than
Ghost Rider.
I don't know if it's better than Ghost Rider. But Ghost Rider that's a difference. So Ghost Rider has the modern special effects and it has more budget. It's hard to compare movies that are 20 years apart, especially when it comes to that. Because if you made the Delta Force today, one, you would probably make it a little less. Not that this movie's over political, but you'd probably be a little more PC doing this. You know, possibly. You know, you probably would have Afghanistan terrorists. You know, you would probably make it more modernized and things like that. If you were to do the Delta Force today, you know, who knows? I mean, I read someone made a comment somewhere that you couldn't make this movie today. I don't necessarily disagree with that. You can make this movie today. You would probably change it. You probably wouldn't have them take over an airplane because that would be sensitive nowadays. You know, but you could do it. You could do a movie like this. Hell, The Expendables owes a lot to the Delta Force and the type of movie it was. You know, and that's what The Expendables was trying to do. Was trying to make a throwback film to old '80s action films like Commando and the Delta Force and the old Van Damme movies of the day, you know, and that's what the Expendables was.
Yeah.
So, you know, you could make the Delta Force today.
Universal Soldier, Red Scorpion,
right.
Which I feel like Red Scorpion took a page out of this book because you got Chuck Norris trying to lift a Jeep. And he doesn't even lift it, but somehow the guy is able to get out. And then in Red Scorpion, Dolph Lundgren lifts a Jeep. And he like leg presses it and gets it off the ground. So I guess that's his way of showing Chuck how to really leg press a Jeep and get it off the ground. Which that might be a Patreon movie one day, Red Scorpion, or a regular episode. Might be decent enough to do a regular episode.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen that. I don't really remember it too well, but yeah. So what do you think? Like, what would you rank Delta Force?
Yeah, I think it's a C+. I mean, and there's no shame in being a C+ for a canon film.
And that's what I think. I think it's one of those movies that's like, it's a C+, but it's also a guilty pleasure film. You want to sit down one afternoon and watch something you don't have to think too hard, just enjoy a decent little action film. You kind of have to be in the mood for an 80s style flick. Sit back and watch it, you know, and enjoy it for what it is. I think that's kind of the way I look at it, you know. But not a terrible film, but not a bad film. But that's going to lead to our weekly top 5, which is a new feature we started last week. We used to do a lot of top 10 lists, so we decided to bring it back in a new form. And I said last week that I wasn't going to always tie it in with the film, but I lied because now 2 weeks in a row it's going to tie into the film. And this week, because we're going to do last week we did after the news, but I want to do it before the news this week. I'm going to read off. As we know, Chuck Norris has become a meme. He's become known for Chuck Norris facts for the internet. When Chuck was at Comic Palooza a couple years ago, remember he talked about some of his favorite ones that he heard, and we got to listen to him talk about how he's embraced the Chuck Norris facts thing, which I thought was really cool. So I don't necessarily have 5 I picked. I'm just going to read some, and I'm going to read some Chuck Norris facts for you. And so did you know that Chuck Norris threw a grenade and killed 50 people? Then it exploded. Chuck Norris can hear sign language.
Ooh, that's a
Chuck knows Victoria's Secret. I'd like him to tell me that one. Chuck is the only person that can punch a cyclops between the eye. Yeah, I don't know. Chuck can strangle you with a cordless phone. It's like, what?
That's awesome.
Death once had a near Chuck Norris experience. Once a cobra bit Chuck Norris's leg. After 5 days of excruciating pain, the cobra died. When the boogeyman goes to sleep every night, he checks his closet for Chuck Norris. And we have a Waverly cameo. Get that down. Chuck Norris doesn't cheat death. He wins fair and square. There is no theory of evolution, just a list of creatures Chuck Norris allows to live.
Allowed to live.
I like that one. Chuck Norris can pick oranges from an apple tree and make the best lemonade you've ever tasted. That's a stretch.
I believe it.
When a zombie apocalypse starts, Chuck Norris doesn't try to survive. The zombies do. That was pretty funny.
That's awesome.
Chuck Norris has a diary. It's called the Guinness Book of World Records.
Nice.
You better watch out, Matt. Chuck Norris can kill your imaginary friends. Chuck can set ants on fire with a magnifying glass at night. Oh, these just keep getting better. Wow. Chuck Norris's daughter lost her virginity. He got it back.
Wow.
Wow, I've seen these before, but these are some. The real reason Hitler killed himself is because he found out that Chuck Norris is Jewish. Oh, shit.
Oh, damn.
Chuck Norris once went to Mars. That's why there's no signs of life. Chuck Norris beat the sun in a staring contest. And Chuck Norris is the reason Waldo is hiding.
That explains it.
Oh, here you go, Matt. This one's for you, man. And this Brett Favre can throw a football over 50 yards. Chuck Norris can throw Brett Favre even further. And on that note, bump, bump, bump. You got to hit your boy Brett Favre.
That's awesome.
So instead of our normal,
I didn't think you were going to work. I didn't think you were going to work in Brett Favre. That threw me off.
That one just sort of. I actually didn't even look at that list earlier. I just found it and you know what? I'm going to read some of these for the weekly top 5. And
that's awesome.
It worked. So that is our weekly top 5 this week. Some Chuck Norris facts for you after talking the Delta Force. So let's do some news, man. You know, we'll start out with we mentioned your boy Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's that new Predator game, Hunting Grounds or whatever. And it was funny because Arnold did not want to come back and play Dutch for the Predator movie that came out last year because he just didn't like the movie. But I guess they paid him enough money. He came back and did the mocap and the voice work, and they captured him for the DLC to replay Dutch for the Predator game. And Arnold talked about how he really enjoyed doing it again. And I just thought it was interesting. I imagine doing the work for the game was probably only a couple of days instead of a full movie. But it just kind of made me talk like we talked about before. It's like, man, how cool it would have been to get another Predator movie with Arnold as Dutch, you know, and the Predator comes back for revenge. But was never meant to be, you know. But if you're interested,
you can want to bring him back in the last Predator movie?
Well, they did for the last movie. He didn't want to do it. But you can play as Dutch in the DLC for the Predator Hunting Grounds game. I haven't heard a lot about that game, which tells me that it must not be that great. But, hey, if you want to play as Arnold in that game, you can do it. The New Mutants. The New Mutants is going to get a theatrical release, even though all the rumors have been that it's going to go direct to video. They have been talking about this movie for a year and a half. At this point, just put the fucking thing on Disney Plus so we can watch it. But apparently it's going to come out in August. And that's if movie theaters are even getting new movies by then. We'll see. But New Mutants scheduled for August for those people who have been waiting forever to see it. You can maybe finally see it in August. But if I had to bet, I would throw 20 down and say this movie's going to go straight to streaming. You know, just my guess. Are you excited for it at all? Like, I was maybe a little excited, but now I'm just kind of like, I have a passing interest. I'll watch it because it's an X-Men film and it's comic books, but I'm just not excited anymore for it.
Yeah, same. I mean, it's Fox, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and after that turd, it was Dark Phoenix, and it's kind of like, whatever. You know, so we got some Star Wars news, some casting news for The Mandalorian Season 2. They announced today that Timothy Olyphant, however you say his last name, is going to appear in The Mandalorian Season 2. He's a good actor, man. I don't know what role he's going to play. But the big news was that Katie Sackhoff, who voiced Bo-Katan in Star Wars Rebels and in the Clone Wars, is going to appear in the live-action version of Bo-Katan in Mandalorian Season 2. So, of course, she's best known for playing Starbuck in the Battlestar Galactica reboot from a few years ago. So I think that's kind of cool that she's going to come back and play Bo-Katan. I can imagine that she's going to want her Darksaber back that Moff Gideon has. So that could be a very cool, interesting fight when that happens in Mandalorian Season 2. And lastly, Paramount announced today a third Star Trek streaming show called Strange New Worlds, which is going to take place about 10 years before Captain Kirk, and it's going to star Captain Pike, Spock, and Number One from Star Trek Discovery. Because I don't follow Trek as much as Long, our other co-host, does, but I guess Star Trek Discovery Season 3 is going to be in the far future. So we're going to get to see what happened to the characters from Season 1 and Season 2 on this new show called Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And they ordered a season for that for Paramount, so it'll probably be on CBS All Access sometime next year. So that should be cool for the Star Trek fans out there. But, yeah, that's all the news I got. It was a very slow news week, really. News had started to pick up the last couple weeks, and this week it just kind of slowed down again. But it happens. Unless you had anything, Matt, that I might have missed.
Little Richard?
Yeah, I guess. But, I'm not kidding. Whenever I texted you guys the other day, I would have sworn Little Richard had already died. I mean, I was like, he's still alive?
I hadn't heard nothing from him.
And I wasn't the only one that said that. I have a couple other people that said that, too. Like, yeah, I thought he was already dead. But, yeah, they call him one of the godfathers of rock and roll and soul music. So, rest in peace, Little Richard. But, what's funny? It's like, I couldn't even tell you the name of one of his songs. I'm sure if I heard a song, I'd remember it. But, like, off the top of my head.
Tutti Frutti?
Was that him?
Yeah,
see?
Tutti Frutti.
Yep. Spare us. Matt, spare us. So. But that's all I got for today's show. Well, no, wait. We have a preview next week's episode, as I'm getting child cameos again on the show here, as she wants juice to drink and stuff. Kids. You're going to have a fourth one. God rest your soul.
Yes.
But yeah, before we get out of here, let's preview next week's episode. Kind of bittersweet, because we were supposed to be next weekend at Comic Palooza 2020, which of course got canceled due to COVID-19. And we were going to do this episode live at Comic Palooza. We were really excited about it, because it'll be 20 years this year since this movie hit theaters, and we're going to talk the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Our family grows. The city itself will be our playground to use as we please, rewarding ourselves and punishing our enemies.
We've been looking for you, Miss O'Neill.
There is a new enemy, freaks of nature. Together, we will punish these creatures.
What the heck was that?
Looked like sort of a big turtle in a trench coat.
Awesome!
Excellent!
Yeah! I love being a turtle!
Next week on the show, I'm really excited to talk this movie. I've always been a Ninja Turtle fan. I think the original film is still the best, and it's going to be a fun one to talk about. I wish we were doing it at Comic Palooza, but it wasn't meant to be. So we're going to make the most of it and talk about it regularly without a live audience or anything at Comic Palooza, and discuss 20 years of the Ninja Turtles and look back on their legacy and how the Turtles have come so far in 20 years from that first live-action film.
Yeah, I mean, the toys, the Technodrome, the Burger King cartoon, stuff that they gave out, and all of that. And you can watch it all on Vudu for free right now.
Yeah, it was on Netflix, so apparently they took Nerd Turtles off of Netflix, but it is on Vudu for free right now. So yeah, check out Ninja Turtles, get ready to watch it with us for next week's penultimate episode before we get to episode 200, the big anniversary episode in a couple of weeks. So that should be fun next week to talk about that. And as always, go to the rebelradiopodcast.com and join our Patreon for just $2 a month. You get exclusive episode every month and other stuff. And go to Amazon Prime, watch this week's episode of The Delta Force if you would like. And make sure you follow us on all our social medias, Twitters, and all that good stuff. And for anybody that tuned in to Facebook Live tonight, we always appreciate you doing that. It makes the show a lot more fun to interact with you guys, Ted and Adrian and James. I saw him pop on there, so we appreciate those guys checking in and tuning in the show for a few minutes. Brian and Tyler, a couple other guys I saw pop in there, so we appreciate that, guys, for checking out the show for a few minutes. It gives us a reason to bring it to you on Facebook Live if we know people are going to tune in. But that's all I got this week. We hope everybody just continues to stay safe out there from COVID and take care of each other and do your part. And chat, you were going to say something, Matt, with your green screen?
That's about it. Yeah.
Anybody was watching this online noticed that Matt had his little green screen going behind him. He thinks he's so fucking clever with his Chuck Norris image. But hey, A for effort, buddy. That's what I'll tell you. There's my thumbs up in the camera there. A for effort.
Thank you, sir.
But thanks as always for listening, everybody. We do appreciate it. And we look forward to the next couple of weeks as we bring you 199 and 200 and all your support for the Rebel Radio podcast. But until next time, this has been Mark.
This has been Matt.
As always, remember, just go there and do it.
Hey, you're listening to the Rebel Radio podcast. My name is Sean Patrick Flannery, and I hope you dig the podcast.